Hello ladies and gentlemen of the internet, my name is Scyushi and today we're going to be reviewing the Wave XLR from Elgato. It just arrived today. I'm really excited to set this thing up. I'm very curious how it's going to work when I set this thing up because you see it only has like one dial knob, but apparently it's pretty intuitive and ends up coming with the Wave Link software. So you can kind of see with that image right there. I'll have better footage later on in the video, but essentially it is a volume mixer where I can not only adjust volume for myself, but independently I can mix stuff for videos and for streams and junk like that. I am in no way sponsored by Elgato, but I do use a lot of their hardware. I've got their green screen, which this thing is amazing. I love it. I actually have a video review of it versus like a $20 green screen I made at Walmart. And I also have a Elgato key light, which I absolutely hate this. This is one of the worst pieces of hardware I've ever purchased. Don't buy it because it is not wired. It is over Wi-Fi, which means that you have to either use your phone or the Elgato Stream Deck, and this thing constantly disconnects from the Wi-Fi. It's terrible and I hate it. I do also have the Stream Deck, but I don't really utilize it for more than just shortcuts, as you can see. Now, as far as my mic situation, I use the Scarlett Focusrite for XLR to USB. My mic is a Shure SM7B, which it looks a lot dirtier than it is. Just shut up. And then I use the LA610 Mark II. This is my preamp, which I can never get away from this thing. It is basically the best thing that I've ever purchased because it allows me to completely adjust and fine tune what I want my voice to sound like in my videos. And I don't have to do any of that afterwards in editing. So it really streamlined the process. The problem is that beast of a box is very, very expensive. And I've had it for probably like maybe 10 years now or something like that. I don't think that it's close to dying by any means, but I've just started having a very, very real thought of if it did die, I am not going to be able to afford another one. So I'm not necessarily saying that this thing is going to be a replacement per se, but if I can end up getting myself to sound even remotely close to what I do with my huge setup with something like this, that is like maybe 15% of the cost of the LA610, then that would be stupendous. Now, just before we get to the unboxing, I did want to mention, my friend gave me an alternative to this, which would be the Go XLR Mini. In hindsight, that thing actually seemed really, really good in comparison to this, because Elgato is really, really good for streamlining stuff, but they don't usually give you a lot of control. And I like having control in the sense I really want to dial in all of my stuff. But this is inside the box, so I assume this is the knob, and then this just says get connected. I assume this is going to end up being just the wires. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised by this thing. Like, it's got a decent amount of weight. It feels really solid, and the turning knob actually feels very smooth. It's got a little bit of I won't say it's a click, but it's like doop, 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 like kind of like goes in little click sections. Apparently the mute button is on the back here or something. A headphone, USB, and then, okay, there's the XLR. So I want to also take the opportunity to mention that one of the big reasons why I went towards this instead of the Go XLR Mini that my buddy ended up talking about is because this was very, 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 very much designed with my microphone in mind. Like, as much as I love my Shure SM7B, the biggest problem with that microphone is it's insanely quiet by default. And so you usually have to have like either a mixer or a preamp or something like that to bring the volume up. But what you run the risk of is by bringing the volume up, it can just clip instead. Interesting. So I'm looking at the manual, which good thing I did. Apparently, while the knob can be adjusted, you push it in once and that'll select the mode. And then if you long push, it'll toggle phantom power. And then it does say that on the back, I guess this right here, that's actually the mute. So I guess it's like touch sensitive. It just says tap to mute or unmute. So I'm curious to see how that's gonna work. I realized that the cord that they gave me for the USB, it is quite long. But unfortunately for Elgato, I actually use a standing desk. and this cord is not going to be long enough for that. Okay, so here it is so far. I think it's red because my mic's not plugged in. Oh, okay. So it was red because that's muted. Apparently, if you have a condenser mic, you hold this for 2 seconds and you want to keep this on. I don't know what that is on my nail. And then if you have a dynamic mic, you just turn it off. There is the control for the mic, and I would adjust it here, push it in. That's my headphone volume, I guess. And then I push it in, and the last one, that's supposed to be, it says the mic/PC mix. Okay, so the next step is essentially, I guess I just have to dial it all in myself on my PC. So I'm gonna have to double check and see how it sounds in OBS, which is my recording software. For me, myself right now, I don't have any effects on anything, and I can hear the wisping in the room. Looking back at the footage, that was pretty rough. My voice sounds okay, but it is picking up a lot of the background noise, and it was pretty dynamic between when I start talking and when I stop talking. So I went into the Elgato Wave Link software and I adjusted it ever so slightly. I'm gonna just keep tweaking this until I find something that I'm happy with. So if I actually capture my desktop, this way you guys can kind of see what I'm dealing with here. So the interesting thing is I can actually adjust this myself, which might be weird to do in the video, sorry. But if I end up physically adjusting the knob, you see that it actually changes it in the software as well. So it always is going to be perfectly in line. The headphone jack, this output is for myself, right? So if I crank this all the way, I can essentially hear both myself and my PC. So it was like I thought, where I can adjust my own independent volume levels for everything. And then I can also adjust what you guys will hear as well. So that's pretty cool. I am very, very surprised how close this sounds to how my voice already sounded with the big beefy rig. Okay, so it's a couple hours later. Not using Facecam just because, my God, this took a long time to set up. It was quite a big overhaul to convert all of this, but I am fairly familiar with the software now. So the difficulty came in with setting up all of these external audio sources. For the system default, or more particularly Discord, Opera, whatever, basically when we're creating a new output or input, I guess I should say, I would basically select any of these. And so then you click this thing right here, and then we can start selecting which apps output to which location. But we just click the output and then we set voice link voice chat. So that's what this was initially, was voice chat. And then I just renamed it to Discord. It does mean that you have to have the programs opened in order to have the audio source be detected here in the first place. So the worst culprit of all of this was trying to get it to work with my speaker setup. And more importantly, when I did get it to come out on my speakers, it was really, really quiet. So let me just show you what I did. For the speakers, it was as simple as unplugging my speakers from my computer and instead plugging them into the headphone out jack on the Wave XLR. So what this did was allow me to use both the Wave XLR and my speakers at the same time. And then anytime I want to end up using headphones, instead of using this jack, I'll actually just plug my headphones into the speakers. Now, one little problem that happens is even when I have my headphones plugged into the speakers actually still output volume. So all I have to do if I'm like streaming or recording or whatever, and I don't want this to bleed into my mic, is I just manually turn the volume down, or I could just shut the speakers off. So then I ended up noticing that the audio levels themselves were really, really low coming out of the speaker. So what I did was I opened up the Windows sound system or whatever, and you notice how there's all these different auxiliary outputs for the Wave Link now. So you basically are gonna have to go through each of these, and you might notice some of these are low volume. So I got everything working perfectly fine now, but I wanted to share my troubleshooting issues with you guys just in case it's helpful. One of the main things was every time I would restart my computer or have Windows update, it would just completely destroy the Wave Link software. So what I found was the software was starting with my PC, but it wasn't starting in admin. So I had to constantly close the program after my computer started and then reopen the software with admin control. Eventually that ended up just going away. Another thing is for the Windows default output, the software recommends using the Wave Link headphones, but I found that in my specific instance, it would no longer play sound out of my speakers if I did that. Suffice to say, I have my Windows output set as the Wave Link system rather than the headphones. But overall, would I end up recommending the Wave XLR? Yes, because in combination with the Wave Link software, this did exactly what I wanted it to do, which was replace my big beefy preamp. I've got a lot more space on my desk now, and then on top of it, it just feels like a lot cleaner and more professional. But as picky as I can be with my mic sounds, I kind of had to lower my expectations because as you can hear in this room, it's very, very echoey. And there's not much I can do about that unless I would spend thousands of dollars making this room look really, really ugly by putting foam everywhere. But thankfully, it's not very noticeable in the videos thanks to NVIDIA Broadcast. Now, the Wave Link does actually have its own compression, equalizer, and stuff that can remove the background noise, but it's not nearly as good or powerful as NVIDIA Broadcast is. At the moment, I'm kind of using a combination of them both, but the aspects that I'm using from the Wave Link software itself are very, very minor. But that's gonna do it for me. Smash like, sub for more, but I don't do these tech reviews very often because I rarely ever need to upgrade any of my hardware.